What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Yuminski. Back at it with yet another review. And today we're going to be reviewing yet another Blumhouse film, the sequel to the first Megan, that of course being Megan 2.0. But before we get into the beginning of the review itself, guys, as well, you might realize that I have a little bump on my nose and my knuckles a little bit. I did just a couple of minutes ago just scratch my nose and my hand across the bottom of my pool by accident. So if you're wondering why my face and that kind of looks off, that's why. And as well, I would just like to point out too, this, as of right now, is going to be my current way how I film my reviews. So the original way with the green screen is not going to be the way I record my movie reviews anymore, as of right now, unless if I find an app that I can actually use my green screen. But other than that as well, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, because number one, it's absolutely free. Number two, also maybe help with the YouTube algorithm. And I recommend the video to more people, maybe they could join. That's it! Please do feel free to comment your thoughts on Megan 2.0 down below. With that being said, guys, let's give a quick plot synopsis of the film, shall we? So transition into Zamia.
2 years after Megan, a marvel of artificial intelligence, went rogue and embarked on a murderous rampage, its creator, Gemma, has become an advocate for government oversight of AI. Unbeknownst to her, a defense contractor has created a military-grade weapon known as Amelia, the ultimate infiltration spy. However, as Amelia's self-awareness increases, it becomes less interested in taking orders. Hoping to stop Amelia, Gemma decides to resurrect Megan, making it faster, stronger, and more lethal.
So with Megan 2.0, I was a fan of the first Megan. I really enjoyed that first film. I thought it was fairly entertaining. And one of Blumhouse's better films for sure. When they announced a sequel, I was going like, okay, yeah, no doubt. Because the first movie was actually quite a big success. So I was going like, okay, if they're probably going to do a good job with the second film as well. And then also I heard the rumblings before this film even came out that they were going to change from horror to action. So, you know, where the first film was very much like the first Terminator, where that was more of a horror direction than an action direction, they decided to do an action direction more in the vein of Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So for the second film. So I was going like, okay, that sounds like it could be fun. It might work, or it might fall flat on its face. And then last year, Blumhouse did not have the best year. Like, the only film of theirs that I actually legitimately liked or loved was Speak No Evil. That was like in my top 20 or top 30 favorite movies last year, which I loved that film. But then they also had the Blumhouse Blunder trilogy, so that would be unannounced trilogy, by the way, with Night Swim, Imaginary, and Afraid. Which I do get a guilty pleasure out of Night Swim, but the other two, not so much. And then this year as well, they've had a pretty decent year. The only movie that they've had come out before this is Woman in the Yard, which I did like Woman in the Yard, even though I'm still 50-50 on how things end with that movie. I'm not going to spoil it because that's quite a divisive conversation. But anyways, walked in optimistic, thinking that I would like it. And with that being said, let's just get into the actual review itself, shall we? Alright, so starting off with the good, Megan as a lead in here is very, very charismatic.
And Jenna Davis does a great job, again, at voicing this character, and hopefully voicing this character even more down the line. With sequels and spin-offs, of course.
Along with her being a decent lead, and I think possibly could be, like, as the main character in your franchise going forward, as a compelling lead, she as well is very, very funny in this film. There's a couple of jokes that had my theater laughing quite a bit, and I was laughing as well quite a bit during this whole entire film with the insults and the snarkiness from Megan to our characters in this film, so that added a nice little chuckle. I think overall as a whole, it's much more funnier than the first film, so I do appreciate that as well. I think that the new AI, artificial intelligence, what's the word? Antagonist towards Megan in here, Amelia, as well, was actually a pretty decent villain. Like, I think for a first antagonist to Megan in this franchise, I do think she is quite compelling, and there's enough interesting things about her that certainly hook you about that character. As for if this was the second or third villain, I don't think the villain would be as compelling, but if for the first antagonist towards Megan, I think they built her up quite well throughout this film, and you always feel her presence. I think as well the action sequences in here
were quite solid, particularly with the main fight that you have advertised in the trailers between Amelia and Megan. I thought it was actually a quite satisfying fight later on in the film.
The main Clement as well in here has a little side role. For those who do not know who that is, he's been in a couple things here and there. I didn't see the movie, but I remember him seeing glimpses of him in the Harold and the Purple Crown trailer. So, and here he has a fun little side role. He's not on screen for too long, but he's pretty funny as well. I got a couple laughs out of him too, so enjoyed his character. But that's good done. Now let's move on to mixed aspects of it. And this wasn't necessarily mixed, and the parts where I'm 50-50 about, if you don't know what the mix means. But this is not necessarily a mix of mine, but it is going to be a mix for some people on how much they enjoy this compared to the first film. And that, of course, is the main talk about this film in here, which is the change of pace from horror to action, where for those who much more prefer the horror genre
or the horror take on Megan, you're probably going to enjoy the first film more. But for those who like the more action-type movies and like the action approach to Megan, you'll definitely like this one a lot more.
A part of this film does... I felt that there was a part of this film that did also have kind of a message in this film. Kind of. Where I don't know necessarily how to feel about that, putting that in Megan 2.0 with... oh, AI can be good sometimes. Oh, AI can be bad sometimes. And there's a balance where I don't know who they're trying to appeal towards in that little debate. Because, AI is a very controversial topic just in the movie circle. Because recently AI has started to become has started to make scripts for movies. I'm pretty sure... wasn't it Transformers Rise the Beast or Late Night with the Devil? One of the two movies had a AI write the script for the movie, sort of. So that was odd in Megan 2.0. There were moments where I was going, okay, I could see where you're kind of going. But as well, there were moments where they kind of threw me for a loop. Who are you trying to appease to? Anyways... and the final mixed aspect I have in here is the CGI. I do think for the most part the CGI is good throughout this whole entire film. But there is moments where, for example, we've seen it kind of in the trailers with Megan moving her face. The mouth, the movement of the face is kind of weird. But other than that, the CGI I do think for the most part is pretty good for Megan in this film. Now that that's the mix done, now let's move on to the bad. Which I have, first off, the acting. The acting I don't think is outright horrible, but I do think that it is a
downgrade compared to the first film. Because there's some people in here, I'm not going to say who, but they just felt a little emotionless in this film and felt as if they didn't want to be there. So that just appeared like that to me that way. Or unless if that was how the characters were written. I don't know.
This isn't really a negative on the film itself, but if you guys have watched my out of theater reaction for this film, you heard me talk about how I'm so glad I don't have to see this trailer anymore in theaters. Because this is probably just a common criticism that I'm going to have with each single Blumhouse film. They play the trailer in theaters too often, where it's not just annoying that it plays over and over again, but But as well with the trailer, they basically reveal all the best moments in the whole entire movie. And it does the same here. So if you have not seen the Megan 2.0 trailer, I would recommend you pass on that and just go see the movie for yourself, because a whole lot of the best moments are in that trailer. It's just super annoying that happens every single time when a Blumhouse movie comes out. Anyways, rant over and done with. But yes, and to be fair, Woman in the Yard didn't have that much trailers in my theaters, at least, so I didn't get that trailer too many times, but they gotta stop doing that over and over again. I did find this film to be a little too long. It's not overbearingly long, but I do think there could have been a few moments that you could have trimmed here to possibly make the film more digestible to modern audiences. As for the final bad, there is a twist reveal with the character in here. That's where I'm going to leave it with that, but I found it completely predictable. Anyways, that is just my thoughts on Megan 2.0. With that being said, let's bring out the toxic meter. And I'm going to give this a toxic goodness
Yum.
Do I give it a B plus or a B? I'm going to give it a B. Just because I do think the acting isn't as good as the first film, but I don't think the acting is bad for the most part. There's just people that I felt like didn't want to be there. Anyways, as I said before, just my thoughts on Megan 2.0. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on this film down below. But with that being said, guys, I'll see y'all next one, everybody. Peace out.